So hello, hola. Welcome to the Survivor Summit powered by the Milagros Day Worldwide. My name is Vanessa Vargas, a graduate from Healing Voices, and I am honored to be your host for this series of interviews. And today I am joined by Tahirah Taalib-Din. She is the founder, CEO of Hearts Connecting. And I'm so extremely excited and honored to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, and good morning to you, Vanessa, and to those who will be viewing this interview. And I'm honored that you and Dawn thought of me and selected me to be interviewed. I'm honored and truly grateful.
So are we. So I'm going to start off, kick it right off to you and ask you our first question. And as the theme of this event is we are all survivors of something, what do you feel you have survived in your life or are still surviving?
Great question. So there's many that I survived in my life, but there's something in particular that's current and very fresh. As you mentioned, I'm the CEO of Hearts Connecting, which is a virtual online funeral facilitation company. So I facilitate virtual funerals for the family and friends who are unable to attend. This started due to my own personal experience, the love of my life, Antarjana. I married back in 2012. He returned back to the Lord. He passed away on July 30th, 2020. And I'm originally from New York City, and I live in California with my husband. And when he passed away, my family and friends could not be present during that time. So that's what sparked the idea for Hearts Connecting. But most importantly, I'm a surviving spouse. This is the first death that really hit so near and dear to my heart. And I'm experiencing life without my partner physically present. I know he's with God and he has moved on and made his transition, but I'm surviving life without my partner.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Our follow-up question, though, will be, as a result of your experience, you have survived. What skills, abilities, or expertise have you developed that have contributed to your achievements or your success?
So I think the one thing that stands out really loudly is faith. That is something that I had to develop. And my faith in God during this time, when you lose a loved one, you can't call them and ask them, how can I get through this? Because they're usually, he was my go-to person, helping me through life challenges. Like, my husband was 29 years older than I. So he helped raise me into my womanhood. And when I faced difficulties, he was there to guide me through. When I needed brainstorming ideas, he was there to brainstorm this with me. When I needed just peace, he was my peace. And him no longer being here, I had to grow. And my growth came spiritually. And my growth came through trusting in God more and putting my faith in God through this process. And I realized that although I'm a faithful woman, my faith in my relationship with God was not that strong. And one of my mentors would always say, she would say, death comes to sober you. And this is God removing that person out of your way so you can see God clearer. And through my husband's passing, I was able to see, I'm Muslim, so we say Allah. I was able to see Allah clear. And it's been painful and rewarding, but my faith is stronger and it's still growing. But that's one skill that I've learned, if it is a skill, like trusting in God and having more faith.
Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. Thank you. What advice comfort or encouragement would you offer to another woman or girl who has experienced something similar to what you have survived, and how can she move forward?
Yeah. The first thing is knowing that you're going to be okay, even when you can barely get out of the bed, and being okay in the moments of when you can't get out of the bed, when you are on the floor crying, when you feel like your life has stopped. Like, be okay with not being okay, and know that it's very normal to cry, feel numb, to grieve, to miss, to hurt. Like, these are normal emotions, and surround yourself with people who will support you in that space. I've learned that there's no such thing as moving on or getting over it. You grow through these processes and you grow through this experience. So some people mean well with their intentions, but may not know they can say some inappropriate things that can be hurtful and even sometimes harmful or inappropriate. So be around those who are nurturing, who will nurture you, and be okay with where you are. And what has helped me is I was very intentional about my healing. I said to myself, like, I want to feel this pain. I want to grieve my husband because I loved him with all of my heart. So it's only right that I honor this love by experiencing the grief. And no one can put a time frame. Last thing I'll say is no one can put a time frame on your healing. Healing is personal, it's between you and the Lord, and you'll know when it's time, because you have that inner wisdom that say, okay, it's time to get up and work on a project, or get up and take a shower, or get up and go outside, or get up and go see a counselor. So trust your inner wisdom. And if you don't have confidence and trust in your inner wisdom, then speak to someone who you trust that can help you through the process by advising you.
Thank you. That's great advice. Thank you. So I have some additional questions to ask you. My first question I wanted to ask is, understanding that during the time where your life shifted completely, you are also physically alone. And how did that impact your vision of how you were going to move forward with your faith, and with really leaning in to your grief, right? And really embracing it because you wanted, and you still do, honor and love your husband. How does someone who is so isolated in so many ways move forward in that, considering this is something that many people have experienced throughout this past year?
That's a really good, I like how you phrased that question. So, being isolated, mourning, grieving, and healing through my husband's passing, it has helped me to, it strengthened me. And not in a way to where I numb or avoid my emotions. Like, it strengthened the feminine in me. It strengthened that softness in me. It strengthened that inner voice in me, because I had no other choice but to call out to God, because I didn't have a house full of people visiting me or consoling me or caring for me. It was me and God. And let me just preface, I have great support virtually. I have a
Mhm.
large community. But with that, I had to trust and I had to cry out. And I knew that God was going to bless me, because first, I was dedicated and devoted to my husband. And by me being by his side, I could only get rewards from that. So I knew God was going to help me through. And by me being isolated and being able to hear that inner voice and that guidance, it guided me through to seeing what needs that I have to provide as a service to those in need, from Hearts Connecting to the widow support group that I started, So that isolation made it very clear as to what needs that are missing in society that I can fulfill by the grace of God.
Mm. So it's kind of like you went, and we spoke about this before, you went through it to get to it. And that is
Absolutely.
to your purpose, to really not only heal you, but heal others through your work, which is a beautiful testimony as you are continuing to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about you as a woman, says a lot about you, your character, and even more, it says a lot about how you allow God, your Allah, to use you as a vessel and how you surrender yourself in your most vulnerable state. And that is such a beautiful testimony. How do you envision yourself continuing to move forward and giving other women an opportunity to learn how to use their moments of vulnerability as moments of opportunity to grow and to prosper? How would you advise, or how would you guide a woman who may be in your state but may not have the foundation? Because you came with a foundation,
Yeah.
and that doesn't have a foundation. How do you help someone who's just like in that constant state of why me?
So in Islam, we're taught, we don't question God's decree. Like everything has already been preordained. So when we are aware of that, we know that whatever befalls us was meant to befall us. So knowing that things are already pre-decreed, you ask, I would say to a woman that you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested with your wealth, your money. You're going to be tested with your family. You're going to be tested, and that can be whether it's a divorce or whether it's a breakup or whether it's a death. You're going to be tested, and those are things that prepare us for what's next to come and prepares us for the next life, the afterlife. So knowing that God is going to test you, it's really just holding on to your faith. And if you don't have a religion, you need to, my opinion and advice, you need to find one. If you came from a Christian background and you may not be really practicing, go back into it. Because if you come from an Islamic background and you may not be practicing, go back into it. Because that, to me, that worshiping a higher being, that is what's going to pull you through. And that's what's going to strengthen your faith. And that's what's going to get you, because it's great to have support. It's great to have outside or external support. It's important. But that internal support and that spiritual support is the thing that will really get you through to where you need to be. And I'll end with this. My husband would always, he was an imam, a spiritual leader, a teacher, and he would always say to his clients who he coached, he said, they watched The Exorcist, this movie, The Exorcist. And I think it was the priest came in to remove the demons from the woman. And they asked him, he asked one of the people, does she have a religion? And they said no. And he said, then I can't help her. So he knew that she had to have faith in God, whether your faith is strong or small as a mustard seed or as strong as a mountain. He knew that I could only assist if she believes in something greater than herself and greater than I. So that's something that I would say, your strength and your healing is going to come through your spiritual way, your spiritual practice, and your faith in God, and then everything else is a complement and an enhancement.
Thank you for that. That hits me personally. And before we go, can you just share with us a little bit more about what your whole life has become as far as what your service is now to others. You know, we spoke a lot about your faith and a lot about, you know, your love and honoring for your husband. And that's such a beautiful thing. Tell us more about Hearts Connected. Tell us
Yes,
more about your widow support group. Talk to us more about how people can get connected to you.
absolutely. So, Hearts Connecting, as I mentioned earlier, is an online virtual funeral facilitation company. I facilitate funerals um, for those who aren't able to attend. I work with the funeral directors, funeral homes, and I also work with clients one-on-one. You can learn more about the services at heartsconnecting.com. And we help to bridge the families who are unable to attend. It's hard for a family to not, or for friends to not be at their loved one's funeral or janazah in Islam to pay their respects. So it can be a difficult trial for them to face. So we bridge that gap so they can pay their respects. And it's just a beautiful experience. I also started Muslim Widow. It's a widow support group for Muslim women and women of faith. And you can learn more about that through Hearts Connecting as well. And I provide workshops for widows who lost their husbands, whether they lost their husband today or 20 years ago. And this is a safe space for them to mourn, to grieve, to heal, and to be heard by their peers, because studies have shown that the greatest death and the number one life altering death in an adult life is the loss of a spouse, because their life completely turns upside down. Their routines completely change. And this is what studies have shown. So to have these women understand what they're going through, to understand the grief, and to be among their peers, it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Are there any last words that you would like to share from your heart to our viewers today?
Yeah. I do want to say one last thing. When you experience loss, and particularly death, one way we can honor our loved ones is by doing deeds that are good, that can be ongoing. We believe in Islam that, there are three things that follow that can benefit the dead. And it's a righteous child that prays for them. It's knowledge that they left behind, and good deeds that you do on their behalf that benefits them in the grave and on the day of judgment. So remembering the life that they lived and not their death is how we really honor our loved ones. So set up a charity, donate to a charity, give clothing, feed someone, um, open up a library name, go overseas, not go overseas, but you can purchase a well for someone in Africa. That's only $800. That can go a long way and feed a village. So when you go through, that's something that you can do. And lastly, know that what you're going through is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And it's changing you or growing you to the person who God wants you to become or needs you to become.
Thank you so much. That was so powerful. I really appreciate you taking out the time today to meet with me, to share your voice, to share your truth, and not only that, to help make moves and to really move other women around the world, because being virtual, that's the beauty of it all, right? You can connect with anyone, anywhere. So thank you so much,
My
Tahirah,
pleasure.
and you have a blessed, beautiful day. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Vanessa.